Hi everyone, Leah here from EurekaCrystalBeads.com with another fun beading video for you. Before I get started, just a quick reminder to go check out the rest of our channel, and if you like what you see, hit the subscribe button and notification bell, and you'll always know when we're posting new content. Today's project is an earring that uses materials from our newest collection, Verdant, and I'm calling this the Verdant Exotica earring, and I think it looks pretty exotic. So what we have here are a mixture of Swarovski elements. We have seed beads and we have Czech fire polish. So let's go over a little more closely what we're going to be using in the project. So we have some 3mm fire polish here, and the 3mm I find are especially sparkly, which is why I liked pairing it with these other materials, like alongside the other Swarovski pieces in here, because 3mm I think are just a little extra sparkly than some of the larger sizes of fire polish. I also have some Toho seed beads here, beautiful, fun, vibrant, kind of a grassy green color. I have a Miyuki size 15 in a nice bright silver color. And the other, sort of the more key elements, I have a 8mm SS39 Swarovski Chaton in emerald, beautiful green. And I also have an emerald, this beautiful Swarovski pendant here. And of course my other earwire, because I'm going to be making the mate to this earring for this video. Now, just something I want to mention. These pieces are included in our new Verdant collection, except for the Miyuki seed bead and the earwire. So if you have any Miyuki 15 seed bead you'd like to use, you can use it, or we can certainly link you to the one that we have for sale on EurekaCrystalBeads.com. And what's great is this is only like a few bucks. I think it's actually under $3. So you'll get a nice, beautiful vial of this lovely, really versatile size 15 Miyuki seed bead. If you do have one of your own that's silver or that's a different color, great. I would use Miyuki for this project, not Toho. There is a hair of a size difference between them. So for this particular one, I would do the Miyuki for the 15. But like I said, if you like this and you don't have it, we'll link you below to it. The other key elements here are included in our wonderful Verdant collection, which features beautiful greens and silvers and grays. And like I said, just the ear wire also isn't included, but many people already have them. Or if not, we'll link you to those too. We certainly have a lovely selection, and I like these ones the most, which are the little ball end ear wires. I'm also going to be using some 6-pound fire line. I'm using smoke, but this earring you could definitely go smoke or crystal, so it's up to you. Of course, I have my little snippers here. I'm going to use a size 12 needle. As you can see, mine is a little wonky and well-loved. That's okay. I do recommend a size 12 for this. For part of it, you could get away with using a 10 for maybe the first half, but later on, going to a 12 is a bit more necessary, so you might as well start with a 12 from the beginning. And as far as how much of my fire line, I'm using about 3 feet for 1/2 of the earring. So that made this little beauty here. So I have another 3 feet to finish up the pair. All right, let's get started. Okay, the first step of the earring is we're going to be making the little chaton setting here. And for that, we're just going to be using 2 different items. We're going to be using some of the 3mm fire polish, and we're going to be using some of our size 15 seed bead here. We're going to be using 8 fire polish to start with. That will actually make the setting. Later on, we will be using another 8 for a total of 16 on this half of the earring. That will go on sort of the outside here, but this is just decorative and it doesn't hold the chaton setting in place. So that'll just be an additional 8 afterwards. Okay, I'm going to start by picking up each of my fire polish, and I'm going to pick up a 15 seed bead in between each one. And I like to have my size, my 8 fire polish pre-counted out and laid in my little pile. That way I can pick up my beads and I don't have to worry about counting. Let's see. There we go. And again, I do have to stress, use a Miyuki 15 for this, because this is a very particular setting and that it's just perfect for the chaton. So you're going to want to make sure that you use that Miyuki 15 here, because if you use a Toho 15, which is a hair bigger, it may not hold your chaton in quite as well. And of course, we don't want to lose our stone. I'm going to drag this to the end. I'm going to leave a tail that's long enough that I could stick a needle on that later and weave it in. And we also want to make sure that the circle that we're going to create now is very tight. So to start off, I'm going to circle back and go through all of these beads again. If your needle can get through all of them at once, great. If not, just go through the chunks of beads that your needle can go through at a time. And you're going to stop when you get to the beginning again, when your working thread is popping out where your tail is. Just like that. And now we're going to tie our tail and our working thread in a nice tight square knot. If you're not familiar with a square knot, that's right over left, left over right. And now we're going to have a circle that has 2 lines of fire line through it and a nice tight square knot, keeping it a nice stiff little circle here. And that's what we got. Now I always travel through another few beads anytime I tie anything into a circle like this, just so that way my beadwork, as I start to add more beads, starts by coming out of a bead and not out of a knot that's sort of in between 2 beads. So now what we're going to be doing is we're going to be going around our circle, adding in little groups of 4 units. And they're going to sort of create this little embellishment that looks rather pretty, but it's going to become what technically holds the back of our chaton into place. So I'm going to start by picking up 3 15s, and I'm going to go to the 15 that I'm coming out of. And I'm going to loop back around through it. So that way my needle and my tail, or my needle and my working thread, are coming out of the same bead in the same direction. And the 15 that's already in our circle, that's the 4th bead of this little group of 4 that we're creating. One was already there and we added an additional 3. And what you get, and I'll give you a close-up here, is this adorable little unit. And we're going to make one coming off of every single 15 in our little circle here. So pass through the next fire polish and the next 15 in your circle. We're going to do that again. We're going to pick up 3 15s, loop back around, and go into the same 15 that you're coming out of all over again. Pull your little group of beads down. They don't look absolutely perfect. Sometimes you might have to take your needle and just kind of pop them into place there. Okay, and then go through the next fire polish and the next 15. And when you do this part, when you go through the next fire polish and the next 15, give it a nice little tug. That's what keeps everything nice and tight. So I'm going to continue around my circle, adding in these pretty little side embellishments all the way around, and I will see you back here in a minute with that step completed. Okay, I've gone almost all the way around. I have one more left to do. So I have my 3 15s on my needle here. Going to, as I've been doing, loop back around through the 15 that I'm coming out of, head right through the next fire polish, and then go through the 15 that I first built one of my little pretty units off of. So that's what we have. This in and of itself is a really just a cute little design. You could do a lot with something like this. So now that we're back to the very first little embellishment that I added, we're going to travel up the little side bead. I find it easiest to now turn my work. We're going to travel up the little bead on the side there. And then we're going to go to the next bead, which is the bead on top. At any point now, if you wanted to, you could stick a needle on this tail and weave it in if you wanted to get it out of the way. Now that we have a bit of the beadwork established, that would be fine. Just going to tuck it in right through this little circle for now, just to get it out of the way. There we go. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to go from tip to tip to tip. So we're coming out of the tip of this little embellishment right here. We're going to go in and out of the tip of each of these little embellishments. And in between going through them, we're going to pick up 2 15s. Just like that. I'm going to do that again. And just keep turning your beadwork as you go, picking up 2 15s at a time. Again, another place here where it's extra crucial that you're using a Miyuki 15 in this case, but like I said, it's one of the things that doesn't come in this Verdant collection, but we have it for just a few bucks. It's actually under a few bucks right on the Eureka Crystal Beads website, so you could always add it if you don't have one. I love having a little stash of little Miyuki 15s in both gold and silver, actually, because they just come in handy in pretty much everything. So now that I've gone almost all the way around, I have the 2 beads on my needle ready to plug into that last little section. So I'm going to go into the tip of the first unit I started with. And you can see the beads are kind of just, they're flared out to the side. Once we pull tight, they're going to pull inward because the length of fireline that we used around is going to end up being smaller than the rest of the beadwork. But before I do that, I am going to pass through the next few beads as well. I find it's just going to make my circle look a little bit nicer when I pull it tight. Now, before I pull it tight, the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my little chaton there and I'm going to place it face down right on top of that little ring of fire polish. Now, this is the part of the earring that can be a little tricky because the ring of fire polish is perfect to keep the chaton in place. The slight bulges in the fire polish almost act as prongs and they keep that chaton in place. You can see right now it's just floating right above that ring, but it can wobble a little bit until it's perfectly set in place. So once you have it just sitting nicely in the very center of your beadwork, I like to just put my finger on top and then pull. And it might slip a couple times, might take a couple of tries if it's not perfectly centered when you're going to pull. And this is what we get. It's held in from the back, and now it's held in from the front. Okay, now what I think is a crucial step now is to circle through all of these beads again, so that way we can make sure it's nice and tight. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that, and I'll be back in just a minute with the next step of our beautiful earring. Okay, so I've gone around that back ring of seed beads. As you can see, it's nice and tight. And a good way to check to make sure that your chaton is sitting there nicely in place is that you can look from the very back and the point of that chaton looks nice and centered. It's right in the middle of our little ring of 15s back there. That's how you know that everything's sitting nice and straight and as it should. If it looks like it's sitting a little bit off, you're going to want to reassess what's going on there, because if it's sitting a little bit off and you continue on with the earring, your chaton could pop out. So you want to make sure that you double check that. As you can see, we have our adorable chaton sitting there right in the front. Now, I don't know how many of you are green fans. I'm a huge green fan, actually. It's one of my favorite colors. I think it looks stunning on so many people, even people who don't realize it would look stunning on them, especially redheads, anyone with kind of that reddish tinge in their hair. Green is just amazing. But I think on a lot of people, green looks more beautiful than people realize. But also, we have St. Patrick's Day coming up. So this is a really fun way to be extra flashy on St. Patty's Day. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to work our way to this front ring of beads. So between our 15s and our fire polish here, because we're going to do more of those little units now on the front, and we'll start those side embellishments there. So all we're going to do is we want to get to a bead in our ring that is the base of one of those units. So where we had sewn them together, where we had gone through the tips of those little units of 4, we want to be coming out of one of those tips. Because then what you can do is travel right up that little unit. So right up the side bead, right up the top, and I'm just going to head right through a couple of beads in my ring. So now we're coming out of one of the 15s in the front of our ring. Oh, I just love chatons. I think they're so stunning. You can just dive right into it. All right, so we're going to do the same little units of 4 that we did in the beginning. So I'm going to pick up 3 of my 15s, I'm going to loop back around and through the 15 that I'm coming out of, and also, if I can, pass through the next fire polish. This ring is pretty tight, so you may not always be able to pass through all the beads that you want to in one pass. You might have to, like if I know that I have to go through this 15 and then through the next fire polish and the next 15, ideally I could go through all 3 at once, but it may not work. So you may have to go through 1 or just 2 at a time here. See, I'm going to lock this one down into place by going back through just my 15. This is where you would want to switch to a size 12 needle if you had started with a size 10, is with this step here and going forward. But up until this point, you can get away with a size 10 needle. All right, so you can see we made one of our little units here. Again, this is a nice tight ring, which is good. That's what's holding our chaton in place because our chaton is sitting just below that rim. So this is going to be a little tight to get through, but it's 100% possible. Again, use that size 12 needle. So all I'm going to do is keep going around. I'm going to go through the fire polish, go through the next 15, do the same thing, add on a little unit, then through the next fire polish, the next 15, and I'm going to do the same thing. So I'm going to go around, get the rest of those done, and I'll be back here in just a minute. All right, I have all of my little adorable outer embellishments done, and it's what we look like from the back. Kind of snowflakey, actually. That's what we look like from the front. And one of the things I love about certain projects is I like projects where you can stop at multiple points and have a finished little item. And then it's up to you if you want to keep making it even more elaborate. I mean, we're going to keep making this more elaborate because this is, of course, a little bit of a fancier earring. But this alone will make a lovely little unit. So you can definitely have fun with the various steps along the way and what you get. So this is the one that I just finished. And then I worked my way through the next fire polish back to the first one. I'm going to go up the side, that, and then across the top. And now what we're going to do is we're going to go around. Sorry about that. There we go. I'm going to go around and we're going to do our cute little side embellishments here. So we're going to need some of our little 11s here, these cute little Toho 11s. Really fun, vibrant color here. And we're going to need 8 more of our fire polish. And another thing to note is that you're going to have tons left over. So if you do end up deciding to take a shot with the Verdant collection, you're going to have tons of things you can make, of course, with everything because the collection is nice and large. You're going to have leftovers of all of these things as far as the seed beads and the fire polish. And not only that, but we give you another pair of chatons in a different color, though. We give you some in Silky Sage, which is stunning. So you can definitely have a lot of fun, and you could definitely make another little set like this, some cute little simple earring. Okay, so the loading sequence now is going to be 11 fire polish 11, just like that. And we're going to go through the tip of the next little arm. Just like that, super simple. So 11 fire polish 11. And I think you're definitely going to agree with me as you're working with these little fire polish. They're really extra sparkly. I love fire polish the tinier they get. And I just think the facets start to get a little crisper, and I think they look so pretty. And they're a nice alternative if you want a pretty sparkly, colorful bead at a little bit of a different price point than Swarovski. We have a nice large selection of both, depending on what your thing is. There's a lot of great projects you can do with fire polish. Okay, almost all the way around. You can see we're getting this really fun little flowery shape. Almost done. Last one. And after that last one, I'm also going to go through the next fire polish, which is the first one I added. Super cute, right? I love these. So nice, so adorable, nice and secure too, which is what we like. So at this point, what we're going to do is we're going to add in the beads up here that are going to be able to attach to our ear wire. And I make it a little fancier. I never really do just a beaded loop. I like to do some kind of a double loop or just some loop that's been altered in some way. I like to make things just a little fancier. So what I'm going to pick up now are 7 of my 15s. Double check that you got 7 there. Yep. And I'm going to loop back around and through that fire polish. So just like we've been doing when we kind of loop back around, my needle and my working thread are both coming out of that bead in the same direction. We're looping back around just like that. Now here we get a pretty simple little loop. What we're going to do now is we're going to go back into this loop through the next 3 beads and then pull through. Now we're going to go through the last 3 beads in this loop, and that means that we're going to skip over the one that's right in the center. just like that. And if things look a little bit loosey-goosey, that's okay, because now we're going to pass through that fire polish and give it a nice little tug, and things are going to get nice and tight, and that center 15 that we skipped over is going to pop right up into a little point. And if it doesn't, that means that your thread is on top of the bead, keeping it from doing so. So just grab your needle in there and pop that little 15 up yourself. But this is what we get when we do a cool little loop and we skip over the center bead. We get a neat little point. So now we're going to go back up into this loop and exit coming out of that point. Okay, because now what we're going to do is we're going to do this little loop right up here, okay? And that's going to end up being 6 15s. Now you might have to adjust the amount of 15s you're picking up right now, depending on the ear wires that you are using. So you might be using an ear wire that's thicker or thinner or has a different sort of shaped loop here. So you may have to fudge with that a little bit, but for at least this style of ear wire, I know that 6 is going to work just fine. I'm going to loop back around through the 15 that I'm coming out of. We get our little loop here. And I'm going to head back down the rest of my original loop, so through the last 3 beads there. Pull everything tight, and then pass through the fire polish one more time and give it a nice little tug. And now everything will tighten up. And later on, what I'll do is I will use some chain nose pliers, and I'll show you that, and we'll add the loop on. But I'm not going to add it on yet, just because I don't want to have one more thing hanging off of the earring that my thread could get caught on. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to work our way down these side beads here, and we have a fire polish that's exactly opposite the one that we have our loop coming off of. So it's the very bottom center of our earring. We're going to work our way down until we come out of that bead. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and I will be back with you guys in just a second. All right, so I've worked my way down to that bottom fire polish. And the first thing I'm going to do now is I'm going to recreate that first loop that we did up here, the 7 where we then popped that middle bead. We're going to redo that down here, because what we're going to do is make 2 of them actually, and we're going to end up using them as sort of the front and back that hold in our beautiful, stunning pendant. Okay, so I'm going to pick up 7. I'm going to loop back around through the fire polish. I'm going to go back through all 7, skipping over the one in the middle. And again, if it looks a little loosey-goosey, that's okay. Once you pull through the fire polish again, you can give it a nice tug and it will tighten up. If your middle bead doesn't want to pop up on its own, it's because the thread is just on the top of the bead. You just have to use your needle to maneuver the seed bead to be on top. You get your nice little popped up there. We're going to do that one more time. We're going to make another loop sitting right next to this first one. So we're going to pick up another 7. Loop back around through the same fire polish. Home stretch, guys. Go back through the entire loop, skipping over the one in the very middle. Again, we're going to do the same exact thing. So we're going to let that middle bead pop up. Okay, if you got to grab that, there we go. Pop it right up with your needle. So this is what we got. 2 little side-by-side loops there, both coming off of the same fire polish. Now I'm going to continue through the loop I just made. So I'm coming out of the very tip that popped up 15. Now this is where I'm going to explain to you what I'm going to do before I show it to you, just because I want to make sure that you have a good visual of this. I'm going to be picking up an 11 and then going through my pendant, picking up another 11. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to be going back and forth through the tips of these little loops here. So I'm coming out of the tip of the loop on my left. We're going to pick up an 11, the pendant, and an 11, and then go through the tip of the loop on the other side. And then we're going to go back through those 3 beads again through the 11, the pendant and the 11. And we're going to go back and forth like this, creating this kind of loop that's going to start to cinch in that pendant from the front and the back. So you want to make sure that you go through your pendant this first time in the correct direction. So sit your earring down flat so it's sitting face up, and sit your pendant face up. It would be a shame to sew your pendant on backwards. Though I do have to point out, the back is just as lovely as the front in case you don't want to feature all of that silver, that they made sort of like a silver cap on this Swarovski pendant. So in the event that you think, it's not quite what I'm going for, you can flip it around and you can use this as the front if you'd like. But in this case, we're going extra fancy, so I want the front as my front. So I'm going to pick up my 11, go through my pendant, so that way I know it's going to sit the right way. I'm going to pick up my other 11. And what I want you to see is how I can keep it still in my fingers, how it's going to end up sitting right here. So that negative space that you get with those 2 loops spread apart, that's right where this is going to go. So I have my little 3 beads on here, and my needle, my thread is coming out of the tip of one side. I'm going to go into the tip of the other side. Now, at first, your pendant isn't going to sit in there super tightly. That's why we're going to go back and forth, and we're going to reinforce it a couple of times. But this first time, you want to pull nice and tight and encourage it to sit nice and high into that space there. Now, not only is that little green seed bead a nice way to pull in that green from the rest of the earring, but it's also serving a technical purpose. So technically, you could do this step here without that seed bead and just have the little silver V's coming down. But the problem is the way that it'll pull your thread through your pendant leaves you much more susceptible to your thread getting rubbed up against maybe the sharper edge of that crystal, because Swarovskis are known for having holes that are a little bit sharper. So having that 11 there in front and the back is going to keep your thread going through your pendant a bit more straight rather than straight and immediately curving up against the edge of the crystal. So it's going to be able to go straight through that hole and then up through the seed bead. So it's visually, I think, a nice thing to do, but it also has a purpose too. So as you can see, we've gone through that other side again. Now I'm going to go right back through the seed bead, the pendant, and the seed bead all over again. Go through the tip of that loop, back through the same seed bead, pendant, seed bead, heading to the back again. Go through the tip of this other loop, and then seed bead, pendant, seed bead. If your needle doesn't want to necessarily go through all 3 at once, that's okay. Just do a little bit at a time. And now that I've gone back and forth a few times, I'm going to pull this a little bit tighter just to make sure that I'm getting this in there nice and snug. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to go through that tip seed bead one more time, and then head right up that loop, the other half of that loop there, through our fire polish. Give it a nice good tug. And now we're at the outer edge of our earring, and this is exactly where we're going to weave out our thread. So if you've never done that before, you can pay attention to this part. If you have, well, you don't have to pay as much attention. I'm just going behind the thread that's between the beads that I'm coming out of, going through the little loop that forms, pull, and you have a little knot. I'm going to go through another few beads. Again, I'm using my needle to go behind the beadwork, behind the threads that are running through the beads that I'm coming out of. You get this little loop, just go through your loop. You get a little knot. We want to do at least 3 to 4 knots and then weave a bit more after your last knot, just so that way when you trim your thread, you're not trimming right next to one of your knots. So let me just finish weaving out a little bit more. You can't weave out enough. After all of this lovely work, make sure that you take proper measures to end everything correctly. You'll notice my tail is also gone. In one of my little breaks, I went through and I stuck my needle on that and I wove it in as well to get it out of the way. All right. Now we can go ahead and trim this off. We're going to take our ear wire. This is where you're going to want to have some chain nose pliers handy. I always keep a pair of chain nose pliers in with all of my seed beading stuff, just for reasons like really needing to grab a needle to pull through beads, or for instances like this. I'm going to swivel my loop open to the side, stick it through my loop here, and then back, close that loop back up, and we have stunning, stunning finished earrings. Again, these are the Verdant Exotica earrings. I hope you guys love them. You can certainly make them in a bunch of different colors. Again, I think this sort of very gemmy, jewelly, emerald look is super stunning. It's vibrant. I love jewel tones. I think green looks better on a lot more people than people realize. And like I said, even with St. Patty's Day coming up, whether you're Irish or not, these would be great to rock out to something a little bit more fancy on St. Patrick's Day. So if you like what you see, hit that subscribe button and notification bell like I mentioned earlier. And thanks for watching. Head on over to eurekacrystalbeads.com. We're going to link you below to everything I used to make these little stunners. As well as that Verdant collection, which is up now live on the website if you are seeing this video. So if you want, you can check that out. You'll get everything to make these earrings with the exception of the 15, plus so much more at a really great discount. All right, guys, that's it. I'll see you next time. Bye.